name is Heather McGee, and this is the Happily Never After, a podcast that explores how life's endings can lead to a personal breakthrough. Because sometimes the end is just the beginning. I am really excited to welcome someone really special to the show. We have been circling each other for a while. She certainly helped me during my divorce. Olivia Howell is a clinical hypnotherapist. That was something new I learned about you and very interesting. A neuro-linguistic practitioner, a certified life and success coach, and a single mom. Alongside her sister, Jenny, Olivia has founded something really innovative and interesting, the Fresh Starts Registry, a first of its kind platform built to support those who are going through brave and bold changes, such as divorce, job changes, coming out, living through grief, and more by revolutionizing the art of starting again. Olivia knows a whole lot about life's endings and the life that comes after. We're both so passionate about helping women get through divorce in one piece. So I'm so glad to join forces and to have you here. Today, we're talking about how to get through the divorce process without losing your mind. Olivia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm like, who is that person you're explaining? Does she must not sleep much because I don't. No, thank you, Heather. I'm a big fan of yours. I'm a big fan of the show, and I appreciate your flexibility in my scheduling around my kids. So I'm very excited to be here.
Turns out we both have a life that's full with a lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Olivia, something you kind of talk about a little bit on social, but I think it would be really interesting. This is all personal for you. Can you start by telling us a little bit about your personal divorce story?
Yes. So this has been and is always going to be a personal mission of mine for many reasons. To go back further than even my own life, my grandparents were all divorced. My grandmothers both got divorced in the 70s and 80s, back when it was different. And they had to get full-time jobs and figure it out as single moms. And then my parents were divorced. And so I grew up around divorce all over. It was very normalized for me and my siblings. And then I got married when I was my early 20s. I did the whole, had a kid. I was a teacher. We had literally a white picket fence. I had what I thought was my dream life, right? I had somebody that I thought was my soulmate and fulfilled every single thing I ever manifested, right, in somebody. And then that's not really what life was like, right? The marriage really wasn't like that at all. And I had a lot of childhood trauma that I was carrying around from my own parents' divorce that, led me to become a very codependent people pleaser type of person and walked right into a very toxic, emotionally abusive relationship, as often that happens. And so my marriage ended in April of 2019. It's almost been 7 years, which is wild. Kind of the second half of this origin story of Fresh Starts is my sister's story. So my sister was engaged to be married. She got engaged 2 weeks before my marriage ended, and she had gotten engaged to her longtime partner. They had been together for 10 years. They lived together. They had an apartment. And this was, of course, 2019. So I'm separated in April. We lived together until August because he ended up moving out of state back to where his family is from in the Midwest. And so when he moved out in August, my sister and her then fiance came over, cleaned out the house. They put an alarm system in. They really did everything they could to support us. I stayed in the marital residence. My sons were 3 and 5 at the time, really little. And when I looked around my house, I was like, this is not the house that I thought, right, this was going to be. Like, we bought the house because my ex-husband was a musician. He's a beautiful musician. And he had a big studio in the house. The studio was empty, right? There was guitars and banjos taken off the walls. It was very haunting. And everything else was from my wedding registry, right? We had the monogrammed towels and the dishes and the plates. So I thought, well, this is what I need out, right? Exactly. So I thought, this is what I need, a registry, right? Like, I had a baby registry twice. I had a wedding registry. But I don't want to heal around these things. Like, I really want to start fresh. So I wrote down this idea. I want to start Fresh Starts Registry. I didn't want it to be necessarily a divorce registry by name because divorce encompasses so many fresh starts, right? And so I wanted it to be a one-stop shop. You could get all of the items you need, whatever transition you're going through in life, but mainly divorce. and the experts you needed, because I had no idea what I needed during my divorce. And I'll be honest, I was very naive. I thought, well, I was 10 when my parents got divorced. I knew everything about divorce, right? And I didn't know I needed a mortgage dealer. I needed a banker. I needed all these things. So anyway, I Googled divorce registry. I thought, well, there's got to be a divorce registry. There was not a divorce registry. And so I said to my sister, I think we should start the world's first divorce registry. Now, at the time, I had a marketing agency. She was on the road doing big tech events. We were not working together. We had dabbled in working together over. We've always been very close, but building a startup with your sibling is definitely a different endeavor. And she was supposed to get married. And so she said, I really love this idea, but we have no idea how to build a startup. We have no idea how to build a registry. Why don't you write it down and, we'll think about it. And so long story short, then of course, quarantine happens in March 2020. And the last big event I had was her bridal shower. And she was in quarantine with her then fiance. She was supposed to get married in May of 2020. So
Some
that,
foreshadowing.
yeah, that did not happen. And so they pushed the wedding off so many times that he decided he wasn't in love with her anymore. And so she had the opposite experience of me. She left her residence with nothing except our grandmother's dishes. And so she moved back to Long Island, which is where we're from, and she rented a sweet little kind of Gilmore Girls type old house apartment. And I get a phone call from her, and she's like, that idea you had for the divorce registry? I don't have anything. She's like, and it's going to cost me $10,000 just to get a bed and a table. She had nothing. So she bought a new table and we sat at the table. And that August of 2021, we built Fresh Starts. And we are the first and only divorce registry. And we've quickly become the premier divorce support network of experts and a divorce education platform. And so we have been changing the narrative around divorce for 5 years now. And it's become just our dream job we get to work together. We work with our experts. We have 150 professionals and growing. And I get to meet with people who are going through divorce every day and support them. And I literally couldn't think of a better life. So I'm very, very grateful. Hashtag blessed on that one.
Well, and I'm sure you've talked to so many people about this too. Something that I've always been grateful for is when I got a divorce, I just made the decision and I could leave. I had a job, like it was hard, but I was able to leave. There are a lot of women that can't leave.
Mm-mm.
Or they really feel like they can't leave because
Yeah.
maybe they're a stay-at-home mom, maybe it's a abusive
Yeah.
situation, they don't feel like they have anywhere to go, they have no money, no finances, and something like this, I think, when you need to leave makes it possible because it really is kind of an unspoken truth that I think divorced women know, but I don't know if everybody else does. There are a lot of women that really do not feel like they can leave because where are they gonna go? They're gonna go to a homeless shelter or to a domestic violence shelter, which I'm so happy those exist. But it is really, they really have to think about, is it worth it for me to leave?
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's a lot of reasons. I do a lot of squawking online about the different reasons that people might stay in marriages, right? There's a lot of
Yeah.
reasons. And one of the things that we are built on is we are absolutely shame free. So, in fact, to be one of our experts, you have to sign an ethos that says you are non judgmental, you are shame free, and you are inclusive. It's really important for us. We are very justice minded people here. And, our whole thing was to destigmatize divorce. And that goes both ways, right, Heather? It's like there are people that are going to
Yeah.
stay because it's safer for them, because they have nowhere else to go. And because divorce, saving up the money, deciding what to do, it takes time. Something that was really important for us along those lines was when we built Fresh Starts, we essentially sat down and built this business plan that was support for people going through divorce that was completely free. And it is always going to be free, which I'll talk about. But then we were like, oh crap, now we need to make money. How do we make money doing this? This is our life's
How do
dream,
we keep it
right? How
going?
do we keep this going? And so one of our friends said, well, do what you've always done, which is marketing and PR and business development, but do that for the experts. The way that we make money, we're very transparent, is our experts pay a monthly membership fee, whether it's $25 or $55, depending on your level. You get your profile, you get access to our top rated podcasts, you get in our magazine, all of these things. we've built out a media company at the same time as building out the divorce support because that really funds the free access. I meet with people every day going through divorce for 15 minutes at a time for free. I never charge. And it's not an upsell. There's no sales there. And people are super wary of it often, right? Like,
Yeah.
especially if you don't know me
Yeah.
or follow me online. I get a lot of people who come in through social media, but it's funny actually locally, there's a lot of groups I'm in and people will be like, "Well, what are you doing? What are you selling me?" I'm like, "Literally nothing. I have nothing to sell you. I'm just here to offer you support." So, we have 3 free ebooks that we've written. They're long books about divorce support that are completely free. You do not need to put your credit card in or any email even. You just can download them. We have tons of we have 4 free events a month. You get the replays for free. Tons and tons of free resources. And then the coolest part that I think is really amazing is that since we've been building our expert ecosystem, we meet with our experts for various reasons, whether it's a podcast or we do business coaching with them and tons of things. So I get to match people based on who I think will be a really good expert for them, right? And support for them.
Yeah.
And then they get to tailor their business around what they're actually seeing is happening in the divorce world. So we've had some experts of ours, coaches and legal experts who offer, discounted services or free sessions even to people that I send their way because they just want to support people. And so that's the ecosystem that we've built is truly one of a kind and it is changing the world. I get messages every day from people that say, it was one of your experts that helped me leave my marriage or that helped me figure out the financial abuse or your content helped me leave or all of these things. And so it's working, which is great. I'm glad to see that it's working. And
Goal.
we're always listening to feedback. We're always iterating, we're always trying to figure out what's going to help our experts grow and the people who get the support. But it's really important for us to note that building a registry is always free. We are based on Amazon and My Registry, and it's always free. And we give you scripts on what to say to your people when you want to ask for support. All of our content is free. And so you can also email us just with anything that you need. I've developed amazing relationships with people that just start emailing me and will just tell me things about their life because they don't have anybody else to talk to. And
Yeah.
and I'm just really glad, we always joke that we're kind of the big sisters of divorce, but that's really, we made a goal when we set out to do this that we never want anybody to feel alone going through divorce again. And we mean that. Like 24/7, my DMs are open. I respond to everything myself. It's just the two of us. So you know that you're safe. You can tell us things. People send me their divorce papers. They send me like tons of stuff and we're here to support them. And even if we don't have an answer right away, we'll figure out how to support them and what we can do.
Well, I think that's great. It's something that really comes to mind for me. A lot of times, what I like to say is getting divorced is awful. Being divorced is amazing.
Yes.
But getting there is so
Yeah.
hard. Like literally it is crawling through the trenches. I think a lot of women, and I'm not overstating this, for a lot of women, you are fighting for your life,
Yeah.
your literal life
Yeah.
to get through it. Not a euphemism. And I think on top of it, what's kind of funny, not funny to me is you're making all these huge life decisions while you're out of your mind. Like you're being expected to
Yeah.
change your whole life while
Hmm.
you barely know which side is up.
Yep.
For women that are in that space right now, what are some either mental health things or some actions that anybody can take that might help them start to take a tiny step forward out of that trench?
I love this question. And it's a lot of the content we do is around feedback from people that have real questions. And the number one question we get, Heather, is like, how do I do this? Right? How do I get
Yeah.
divorced? Which I wish there was a much easier answer, but I will say this. A little of an action step you can take is that, first of all, to remember that taking an action step doesn't mean you're getting divorced tomorrow, right? We are both former teachers, my sister and I. I'm a big fan of education. And I always say my job when I meet with people is to educate and empower them. So I see a lot of women and men who are just considering divorce, right? And so it's like, here's what you can do. You can learn what a divorce coach does. You can go through your finances and just make a list of what you've been spending money on. There's a lot of things you can do. Number one thing I would say is start a note, whether it's in your phone, somewhere safe, right? That doesn't say divorce notes, that just says note.
Reasons to
Right,
get a
exactly.
divorce.
And just start putting your questions there, right? Start putting any fears there. And then just start taking inventory of what is going on around you. Like, for example, maybe with parenting, who's the primary parent, right? Who gets the kids ready in the morning? Who picks them up? Who knows the dentist's name, right? Who knows the babysitter? Things like that. With your finances, what accounts do you have? Or I always like to say, what accounts do you not have access to, right? And maybe that's even better question. Little things like that, because those are the real questions that are going to come up when you start talking. Then I would always say, book a call with me or email me. I'm booked out far. So email me and I will always find a time for you. And what I do with people is I say, tell me what's going on and I'll tell you what we can do to support you. So what experts do you need? I always recommend a therapist. I always recommend a divorce coach, certified divorce financial analyst, right? People like that. If you own a home, I will always send you to one of our real estate experts or our mortgage experts. These are all free calls. You're not losing anything. And you don't have to tell anyone you're doing this, right? You can just start getting the information because when you go into mediation or when you go into a lawyer meeting, they're going to ask you these things, right? And you want to at least have answers so that you don't sit there going, like I did when my divorce lawyer said, what do you want? And I said, a fucking divorce. And she was like, no, what do you want out of your divorce? And I was like,
We
oh,
need
that,
more
right.
here.
Okay. So yeah, they're like those little things, but I just want people to remember you can take those little educational action steps without burning it all down. It doesn't all have to happen in the next day. The average time a woman considers divorce is 2 years before she even says anything to anybody. And that literally is very true. So, just take your time and there is support for you. Like you truly do not have to do this alone. You can send me a DM, an email, you can reach out if we don't have, like I said, we have tons of experts that do very low cost, divorce coaching or decision coaching, I like to call it, when you just can't decide what you want to do. And then oftentimes what happens is people will meet with one of our experts and then come back to me and say, okay, now I need this. Now I need a real estate expert. Now I need this. So, and like I said, we work with our experts all the time. So I feel very strong and confident recommending them to people, which is what I wanted. One place that people could come because Heather, like you said, you're making these decisions based on you're like going out of your mind trying to make these decisions. You literally you can't Google like mediator in my area. I know who to pick, but if you come to Fresh Starts that they're going to be good people that have worked with a lot of people going through a divorce and that are inclusive and non-judgmental, which is important because there's some really crappy stories out there about divorce professionals.
Well, and educating yourself can give you, I think it's also good for your mental health because it helps you feel like you've got a little bit of control. There's so
Yes.
much that's out of your control, but there are some things. I think giving yourself a little bit of agency is a gift, as much as you can, because it is true, you can't control a whole lot of it. Another thing that I know, I actually think this is the single biggest reason how, I mean, I did lose my mind, but this like helped me get out. One thing a lot of divorcing people don't realize, it doesn't just change your family and your home. It really changes everything. Your friend, you're going to lose a lot of friends, like the friends that you maybe have known for 20 years that you grew up with. It changes so much that you're going to lose some of them. And I would actually, my number one thing that helped me was finding other divorcing or divorced women. Like you need those people. It's not just your friends that are all married and they're wonderful and great
Yeah.
friends, but they do not
Yeah.
understand what's going on with you and they can't give you they don't know, they haven't dated in like a million years. So don't listen to them.
No. Yes.
You need to talk to you create divorce and community and you can find them on Facebook. Like a lot of times there's like single mom. I know Facebook is for olds, but
No,
I'm
I
old,
no,
so
we have
that's why I use
no,
it.
we have you can always email me. We have a wonderful resource guide of groups. And some of them are Facebook, some are not on Facebook, but they're all run by our experts. So I always say they're not like the weird, wacky Facebook groups for divorced people that can get very odd. But these are really great groups. And then we have a couple of our divorce coaches that have fantastic low cost drop in sessions that you can go get divorce support by the week that you can just go and meet with other people. But yes, finding other people who are going through it. Divorce, some therapists offer divorce groups so you can go do group therapy with everybody going through divorce. That is a great benefit to, the group therapies. You see other people going through it, right? You're not going to be alone going through this process because it is isolating. And like you said, Heather, it touches every part of your life. And there are things that you really can't talk about with certain people in your life when you're going through it.
Yeah.
And that's hard for the people. You do lose friends, maybe family members. I mean, whatever it is. But finding people that will understand, like even my own best friend who was happily married kept saying to me, like, well, just kick him out. I'm like, you realize that he owns the house with me. I can't just kick him out, right? Like,
Right. Yeah. It's not that
no,
easy. Like sometimes they like lose patience. They're like, well, why don't you just fix it?
right,
And it's like, I can't. I'm
right.
out of my mind.
Right, exactly, exactly, or just leave or whatever. So, I hate when
Right.
people on the internet are like, "Ah, divorce him." Well, do you understand the pieces it takes there? But yeah, I mean, finding
Right.
people that understand is, I think divorce, much like parenting or losing somebody you love, is one of those things that you don't really understand until you walk through it, right? You think you're like me, my parents are divorced or whatever, but it truly changes you from like a cellular level. And I think that's the part
Yeah.
of divorce that's very hard for people to understand.
Yeah. Well, and I know how I feel about this, but I'm curious how you feel about this. A lot of people talk about divorce and they frame it as a failure.
Mhm.
I'll wait to say what I think about it. I'm curious what you think about that framing because I'm sure you've heard and seen them quite a bit as well.
Oh, yeah. No, divorce is never a failure. It's never a failure. Divorce is everything but. And I get a lot of heat for this on the internet, but I see it as a blessing. And I think
Yeah.
that it is a gift. I've said this a long time. Divorce is a gift. It is a lesson, and it truly is a fresh start. Now, not all fresh starts are going to be happy, positive things, right? That's not the point of a fresh start.
Yeah.
But it is a fresh start is called a fresh start. We did that on purpose because you're taking what you've learned and you're blossoming from that. Right. This is not you're not redoing things. You're not going backwards. You're moving forward. Our messaging, our marketing has been very specific around that. It's not about the other person. You're not going to come to Fresh Starts and hear us be mad about, you know, baby daddies and ex-husbands and this, that. I do a lot of writing about my marriage, but this is not an angry place. This is a positive moving forward journey. And divorce, to me, if you are somebody that went through a divorce, and this is always blows people's minds when I say this, to me, that means that it was always supposed to be part of your plan, right? So maybe that meant that meeting that person, having those kids, having that marriage, there was something you were supposed to take from that. And divorce actually wasn't the error, right? But it was actually the
Yeah.
journey that you were supposed to be on.
Yeah. And someone said this to me, and she's the only person that has ever said this to me. I was like, thank you. Because we were talking about divorce, and she's never been through a divorce, but she said, I bet that process after divorce was a really beautiful example of becoming. And
Hmm.
I was like,
Yeah.
thank you for saying that. And I agree with it is so messy and it is so hard.
Yes.
But I also think there's an aspect to it, two things are true at the same time. It's also really beautiful. You are becoming who you are in those moments. And that's why you shed things. You shed friends, you shed
Hmm.
jobs, you shed all these things that maybe were there before. And it looks really messy, especially to people who don't understand. But to me, that wildness is you coming out of your shell and being who you really are, maybe for, which might have been hidden for a really long.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when I look back on my life, I realize it probably wouldn't have mattered who I married. I was going to get divorced because I wasn't me fully back then.
Yeah.
Right? I'm me
Yeah.
now. I'm my most authentic. And I've yet to meet a woman who's gone through divorce who is not living her most authentic life.
Yeah. Well, I think about it so much, and I haven't gotten to the part, about people that get married and have happy marriages. I think you have to add the caveat
Well,
because lots of people
yes,
don't get divorced, but they're not happy
yes, yes.
in
We
their
always
homes.
say a happy marriage does not end in divorce. And I will say that my sister ended up with a very happy ending. So she is happily married to somebody else. So we are I always say we're pro marriage and we're pro divorce because we're
Yeah.
pro joy. We're pro living your authentic life. If you can live your authentic life and be happily married, then we love a great marriage.
Yeah.
totally.
Yep.
But we also love people just being happy in their life and not needing anybody, and that's okay too.
Yeah, I think that old story of being a divorce tag is very, like, it is
Well,
so outdated. It is so outdated because so many of the women I know that have gone through divorce and it was hell to get there, they're so happy now. And not that it's easy, it's never easy, but it is worth it.
it is worth it, but also the stories that we've told people about that divorce ruins families and ruins children and divorce
Yeah,
tags and all those are cultural conditioning to keep women in marriages. So,
right.
because if the secret came out, which shocker, I'm sharing the secret, right, every day on the internet. But if the secret came out that divorced women truly are the happiest, most free, it would upheave this patriarchy so fast that they wouldn't even know what to do with it.
Right.
And that's why they do say divorce is contagious, and it is contagious, but it's not in the same way that people think. It's contagious in that when you see a woman standing there laughing and feeling free in her energy, and she's divorced, and you're sitting there not happy in your marriage, that looks like a pretty nice life. And you
Yeah.
start asking questions.
Yeah, and I even, there are people in my life, they're a few generations up, and they were in horribly abusive marriages, but divorce really truly wasn't an option. I mean, we were alive when women couldn't have a credit card,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so I just feel so thankful that that's become more of an option. It's always going to be hard, it's never going to be easy. And some women are in really difficult situations to make this choice and get out of it. But I feel a lot of compassion for the older generations where this truly, that's just where you lived. That was just it
It did, and also
forever.
it's still happening, Heather. It really is still happening. There's a lot of financial abuse out there.
Yeah.
And, we actually wrote a book. One of our ebooks is called How to Get Divorced as a Stay at Home Parent, because I was seeing a plethora of stay at home moms that would come to me and say, I gave up my career, I raised the family. And then as soon as he decided he wanted to get divorced, he drained the bank accounts. I don't, and
Right.
these are not people who are in like these, little tiny houses in the middle of nowhere, right? And
Yeah.
they're driving Mercedes and can't afford groceries. And this is really, really real life. And so, I think one of the reasons that we've grown so much is that I kind of said F it, and I've started writing about my own story and writing about a lot of the things I hear.
Yeah.
And, my brain is always, I was a sociologist, and not was a sociologist. I love sociology. I studied sociology in college. And so I always look at everything from that like sociological, anthropological lens. And I think one of my superpowers is translating the interiors of homes into what's happening. And it's funny because when I write about things like the financial abuse or little tiny moments, right? Like having to ask your husband for money for shampoo, the amount of
Yeah.
people that say, "Were you in my house?" Right? How did you know this was happening? Right? And it's wild. And so we've
Yeah.
built this really unintentional community around this just radical authenticity, around what it's like in a lot of these marriages. Because I'll tell you, I felt like a freak, right, in my marriage. Like I was like, am I the only one that's going through this life? Like, really?
Yeah.
And then I realized, well, if I'm going through this, other people definitely are too. And so now that I've been writing about all this stuff more and more, it's not just one or two of us, right? It's a lot of us that are going through some of this stuff. So I think that the more that we can talk about all of this, the more people will be able to live their free lives.
Well, it gives you a touchstone. Like I feel very, I think there are people that are very, very private, which absolutely respect that.
Mhm.
Is a great choice for a lot of people. However, I think it's also true that healing happens in community. It does not happen in a cave. And for all the evils of social media, there's a lot of bad side to it. But one thing that I love about it is it's hard. It gives you a way to know which way is up. Like the things that you're talking about, I see other people talking about. I was like, "Oh, I'm not alone. Oh, I'm not a weirdo." I mean, I am a weirdo, but
Not
I'm not
not
a
what
weirdo by myself,
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's one really valuable thing about social media. I actually think for the bad things it can cause, I think it's actually a pretty effective weapon against abuse
Mhm.
because you're not as isolated anymore. You're like, "Wait, that's not supposed to be happening. I'm not supposed to feel like this." Whereas I think in the past, maybe it wasn't easy to know about that because how are you gonna know? How are you gonna know?
Yes, bingo. You nailed it. And this is why I always say gossip is actually really, really important. In history, it's been a very important tool for women. And that's why it gets belittled, right? Oh, we don't gossip. Because what gossip meant back when you were living, in small villages was that guy's abusive. He's beating his wife, right? And so now with Facebook, and Facebook is where I first started talking to people about. I was in a very small Facebook mom group, and that's where I started posting, like, I think something's off with my marriage. And having people validate that for me, right? And mirror, like, no, what you're explaining to us is not a normal marriage. It's not healthy, was my first step. Right. And so I talk to hundreds of people a day on social media that I am helping through divorce in some way or whatever. To me, that's magic, right? Like that would not exist without
Yeah.
that. And like you said, Heather, I think that you can't hide abuse and alcoholism and drug addiction and all of these things when you're talking about it in these groups. And the anonymous option now on Facebook groups has changed this
Yeah.
story even further because there's a lot of people posting,
Right.
this is what's happening. And then somebody like me, I always joke that like a Facebook mom group hates to see me coming because I'm like, that's abuse, that's abuse, that's abuse. Because it is. And like,
Yeah.
we've disguised, weaponized incompetence and all of these like, oh, he's just grumpy or he's just doing this, that. If you have to
Yeah.
walk on eggshells around your partner and your kids are walking on eggshells, that's not okay. And so I'm calling it out, right? It's time we change that narrative.
Yeah. Well, I always say the real death knell for your marriage is if you have recently purchased the book, Why Does He Do That? Like, you're done. That's it. You're done. Because is he buying that book? Probably not.
Right. If you Google, is this abuse, then usually you're being abused. Yes.
You're done.
Yeah.
There is, well, and something else I think is an aspect for people that are in the trenches of divorce and you are really struggling mentally, and there's a lot of different schools of thought on this. And I think it's all good and right about dating while you're getting divorced. What is your feedback and thought on how to handle dating while you're in the midst of a divorce or whether it should be happening at all? What are your thoughts on that?
I love this question. I'm actually not asked this question a lot. So, funny enough. So, there's a couple of thoughts I have here. One thing is that a lot of marriages emotionally end long before the divorce, right? So, you have some
Yeah.
people that are just done emotionally and they've been in therapy, they're ready to kind of move on. And the divorce is more of like a legal right issue than anything else. And sometimes they may even be cohabitating, like, but that's okay, right? It really depends what their journey emotionally is through that process. I was not like that. I needed to heal majorly. I still haven't dated. And for me, I was somebody that didn't realize what was really happening in my marriage until I got out of the marriage. And then I started healing. And I couldn't heal properly in the house that I lived in because we had lived there together. So I didn't really start healing until I sold that house. And now, 7 years out, and I'm very open about this because the more I talk about it, the more people say, oh my God, I thought it was just me. I feel like I'm finally at the place. Like I feel good about myself. Because my confidence was zero. My
Yeah.
everything. I couldn't even like body, like I don't like not even sexually. Like I didn't even want my legs touching each other. I was so emotionally abused and like cut down. And so it took me a
Yeah.
lot of therapy, a lot of healers, a lot of psychics, a lot of woo to get to where I am. Now, I do think that most people need a time to heal after divorce. It really is a trauma. That's the thing. And there are plenty of people that will find somebody shortly after, and that's I love. But I personally feel like you need time to heal after divorce. Now, you don't need to take seven
Yeah.
years like I did, but some time to figure out what you want. Because for me, I knew where I played into the marriage as somebody that kind of saw the red flags and ignored them and then was very much a people pleaser. I'm an oldest daughter, oldest grandchild,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I knew if I got into any other relationship until I was fully healed, I would do the same thing again. And I did not want that happening again. And so, I think that taking time is okay. Like, I actually wrote about it, so I'm not, scared to talk about it, but I haven't had sex in that whole time. I haven't done anything. Like, to me, I did not want to share my body with anybody until I was ready for it. And I was somebody that dated a lot in my 20s. Like I was constantly out dating and stuff. So this is the longest I've ever gone since I was 15 without dating anybody. But I needed that, right? And so
Yeah.
I think it really depends. I highly recommend therapy and doing the work, because what we don't talk about enough is usually when you're in a marriage that isn't working, it's because obviously of the marriage, but it's because of your childhood, right? There's a lot of things that you haven't unpacked yet.
That's what it always comes
Yeah,
back to.
it
It's like,
does. It
damn
does.
it.
And and I had my own childhood stuff with my parents' divorce and my father, and I thought that I was marrying somebody that was completely the opposite. Turned out he was completely the same, right? So it's like, you have, but I know for the next part of my life, I want somebody that really fills the bucket for me and my authenticity and my kids, right? Because now we're a package deal. And so I always say, I actually think that I love when people get remarried after divorce and they do the work. I have plenty of friends who have done the work, have been the single mom, put their time in, healing themselves, and then have met the man of or person of their dreams. And they go on to have more kids, they have beautiful lives. That gives me chills, because you are not just choosing somebody for you, they're for your family. My mom met my stepdad after my parents got divorced. Quickly after, he came into our picture, and it's been 30 years they've been together, right? So he's
That's great.
like, he's a father to me, he's a grandfather to my kids. Like, we always joke he's our favorite parent, right? Like, so, so it happens. And I always say, like, I can't wait for my kids to meet their stepfather. That'll be the joy of my life.
Yeah.
But you have to take some time to pause, because I don't think we really talk enough about the trauma that it is, but it's the second most life altering
Yeah.
experience that adults go through.
Yeah. Well, I love this story because I think it's a good example of, you actually taking care of yourself, which probably hadn't been happening for a
Not at
long
all.
time,
Not
being
at
true
all.
to who you are and what you want. I love this also because I went the opposite
Yeah.
path entirely. I
Yeah.
jumped right into dumpster fire dating, and I was not conscious of it at the time. Like now I understand everything that was going on now with the benefit of time. Because one thing that I hear a lot, and so this is directly going out there to people who are in the trenches, and they do say those things, like the marriage was dead a long
Mm-hmm.
time before I left. I'm ready. No, you're not. Divorce is a whole thing, and I don't care what you've told yourself. Like, I will be real firm on this. You are not ready to be in a long-term
No.
relationship. Maybe you're ready to date, but I think we need to start having a more multifaceted conversation around dating. It's not like if you think you're going to go out there and be in a long-term relationship, you could, but I don't think I'd advise it. But I think when you're dating while getting a divorce, it's more getting out there. I don't think it's wrong to distract yourself a little bit. It's not wrong to go out and have some fun. And maybe it is someone that has been in a sexless or loveless marriage
Yep.
for a very long time. And you just, you're starved.
100%. Yes.
You are starved. And I get that. I didn't understand that's what was going on at the time for me. I do have 3 things that I say to people, and I will say, please write this down, everyone, if you are if you're dating. 3 things you cannot do if you are in the middle of a divorce. I would actually say 5 years. In the 5 years after getting a divorce or leaving your marriage. 1, do not get married. 2, do not have a baby with someone. And 3, do not move in with anyone that you are in a romantic relationship. Just those are the 3 things that are really hard to back out of, and life is already really tough for you right now. Don't
Mhm.
make it worse
Yep.
by being reactive. And, I think that a really good lesson from the story you just shared is slow down.
Mhm.
Slow down.
Yep.
The only way out is to really think about what's happened, work on
Yep.
what you need to think about, so that you can make the rest of your life better instead of just being in a spiral.
Yeah, and I will say that I have zero issue with, like, what you're saying, Heather, that there are some people that just want the connection, right, physically with somebody. Go out,
Yeah.
do that, have
Yeah.
fun, right? I was in a marriage with a lot of sexual coercion and kind of, like, emotional
Yeah.
abuse around that. So my body was not safe for that for me. That being said, I could totally understand if I wasn't in that situation. Go have fun, right? Like, just wear
Yeah.
protection, be smart. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely do that. Let's add that
that's
to
what
the
I always
must-do
say, that
list.
always, always, always. But there's no harm in wanting to have that physical connection. But I agree with you a million percent, Heather. a long-term relationship, you don't need to jump into that because what's why? Like, right, I always ask myself, like,
Yeah.
what are you jumping into so quickly? Like, because have you
Right.
actually done the work? And let's not beat around the bush. You can't really do all the healing and work when you're still living with the person or still dealing with the divorce. It has to come
Yeah.
after the fact.
And something I noticed too is I think a lot of people think that they are ready long before, like years before you actually are. Like, I think somehow in our brain, and I think part of it's you want to be ready, you want to be healed. And so you try to jump the gun and you say, oh, I'm ready. I'm ready for this. And it turns out you're actually not. I think it just takes a lot more time to heal after divorce than people realize, unless you are some sort of unicorn that gets magically healed immediately.
Yes.
But I don't really believe in unicorns. That's a mythical creature. So, I don't know about that part.
Yes, I agree with you.
Okay. What are some of the unique emotional challenges that women who left their marriage or their marriage ended due to abuse
You mean people that leave, like, that their marriage ended and there's emotional abuse or
because
physical?
of abuse?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there was abuse in the marriage.
One of the things I talk about a lot is the guilt and shame that comes around the
Yeah.
abuse.
Yeah.
You know, we tend to blame ourselves a lot, right? There's a lot of rage that comes up, and there's a lot of, for me, it was a lot of shame. I didn't talk to the people in my life about what the interior of my home was like. It really wasn't until actually my best friend came from out of town to stay with us for a few days, and she was looking around my house going, what the hell is happening here? Like, this is this is wild. And that was really, and my marriage ended a month later. Like, no joke. Because like there was, I think she couldn't unsee the things that she saw and the way that I was being treated. And she was definitely scared, and I hadn't talked to, like, I didn't even know the extent of how badly I was being treated. But like when you say, taking care of yourself, I mean, I didn't sit down, I didn't rest, I didn't watch TV. I was constantly spinning, taking care of the kids, cooking, cleaning, and I ran a full-time agency because I knew in my gut that I had to make my own money. Like, I knew that something there was a reason for it. And thank God I did. Um but there's so much shame that comes from leaving, from being in an abusive relationship, and a complete disconnect from reality often, right? Like, I mean, it's almost like I always say it's like the twilight zone. Like, you're like, what is happening around me? Like, because you look back at your marriage and it's not anything that you thought it was. And you question every interaction that you've ever had. I mean, I think some of the saddest things for me are like looking back at the milestone moments in my life that we shared, like the birth of our kids, and thinking, well, were you really present for those, right? Was he really present? Did he love me at those moments? Did he love our kids? Like, and those are really sad questions to ask yourself.
It's painful.
Yeah, it is painful. And there's a lot of pain. And this is why I think it's really important to get support because it's a lot to hold when you're healing from that. I remember so my marriage ended, he moved out. I knew that it wasn't like, I knew that things hadn't become great, but I didn't know what was happening around me until my sister started sending me TikTok videos of narcissism and abuse and
Yeah.
emotional abuse. And I consider myself a pretty good, like, I was like, I know psychology, I know all these things, right? I had no idea. And I started looking at these videos and I was like, oh my God, this was my life. And I bought a book called The Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist, which changed my life. I literally read it in one night. And then, no joke, I couldn't get out of bed for 3 days. I was so, like, my body was in such a state of shock. And I remember coming out of that and I was like, well, like, the second half of my life is going to begin because now I
Yeah.
realize I can at least start healing from something that was happening to me. And where did I play into that? Not as not like victim blaming
Yeah.
and shaming, but like, how come that happened to me? I had a
Yeah.
very, very difficult time admitting it was abuse because I was a well-educated,
You
former
don't want to
teacher,
see
right?
yourself that
No,
way.
I was like a privileged person. How could abuse happen to me? Well, guess what, girl? It can
Right.
happen to anybody. And that's the thing that I
Yeah.
try to talk about a lot now. But yes, a lot there's going to just be so many emotions that come up, and having that support is really important during that time.
Yeah, you're hitting on something that I think is it can really change your life. Like, this is in a different subject area, but it's related to what you're saying. Like, having that understanding of something big that happened to you. Like, for me, I grew up in fundamentalist Christianity. I have 21 siblings. They were, homeschooled. There was this whole thing. Growing up, I was like, oh, we're just weird. And I remember a few years ago, I watched a documentary, like one was about Hillsong, which is a famous Christian worship group that, people listening may or may not know about. And there was also a documentary called Happy Shiny People that was all about the Duggars, which is about a mega family with a million kids as well. Um, and all the interviews that I watched in there, I recognized it. I recognize it, like things that I had learned when I was growing up, things I experienced, things I was told, places we went. I was like, oh, like learning is part of a system and starting to put the puzzle pieces together of how this happened, whatever it is, divorce, abuse,
Mhm.
other big things that happen in your life. I also had to like lay in bed for 3 days because I was like, oh my God, this is so much bigger than I was accepting. I do think that's important in being able to heal though. Like it's hard to, take in the truth that is really painful and difficult. But I kind of think it's for a lot of people pretty important in being able to move forward. Like see the whole truth, accept it. And acceptance doesn't mean you think it's okay.
No,
Doesn't mean that. It just means
exactly.
you accept the truth of what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, as we're wrapping up here, I have two questions I want to ask you. One is, what is something you would like to say to women? Because I'm going to suspect there's a lot of women listening today, and men too, but I think the audience is probably a whole lot of women. To women who are really going through it right now, what would you want to say to them?
You're not alone. I promise you, you're not alone. I always a DM or an email away, 24/7. I always like to say it's like a diner. The coffee's always hot. And it just can feel so lonely and scary. And even if you just need somebody to say like, I'm scared, right? Or I'm angry, or
Yeah.
just send a message. Like truly, you're not alone during this process. And it really does get better. It really does. Any legal situation is going to suck. You're going to have to go through stuff. But the other side of divorce is truly magical. And that's, I think, the biggest secret because then everybody would get divorced. But yeah, you're not alone and it will get better.
Well, it's so hard to see when you're going through it.
So hard.
It's so hard to see. But you know, it I was someone said this to me at one point, and it was really helpful to me. There's gonna be a day after you get through all this, and you're gonna be so thankful and so grateful that you were able to do this. You're gonna be proud of yourself and the courage it took to fight through it, and you are gonna get to the other side that is beautiful and wonderful, and you will be happy,
Yeah, and I think that
that's simple.
yeah, it is simple. And I don't take any moment for granted because I really was not
Yeah,
okay mentally. And, even just the other night, I was lying in bed, the rain was falling, and I was drawing in my journal. And I was like, this is what I wanted. I just wanted
yeah,
peace. And if I just lived the rest of my life like this, I'd be the happiest person ever because I made it to the other side. And it's really that simple.
yeah. Now, okay, this is my last question. This is something I ask everybody. It's a little bit of an Oprah question, I must admit.
Okay.
Sometimes people have funny answers, sometimes they have really profound answers, but in life, what do you know for sure?
That I'm destined for greatness.
Love it.
I say that to myself a lot.
Well, I mean, it's so easy. I think also as women, we're conditioned to be like
Mm-hmm.
small.
Yep.
We're conditioned to be small and to not listen to ourselves, which is why I really love the story you shared
Yeah.
about doing dating after divorce and really all that the way that was right for you, which is to opt out, for a time. It's okay to put yourself first, you don't have to do what everyone else thinks you should do, what society has told you you have to do. Like you can listen to your own self and what you think is right for
Yeah,
you.
and I think part of why I'm here is because always see there's a better way to do things. And when it came to divorce, I thought there has to be a better way. Why are we isolating people? Why is there so much shame around this? And those are really big questions, but I am here to literally change the world when it comes to divorce because when we can liberate women and men, it will change a lot of systems that are going around.
Yeah. All right. Well, Olivia, I want to thank you so much for being here and sharing your story today. Where can people find you if they want to work with you or learn more from you?
Absolutely. So you can always send me a DM at Olivia Howell, which is really easy. That's my name. on Instagram. I was lucky enough to get that Instagram handle. And you can email me at olivia@freshstartsregistry.com. And you can go to freshstartsregistry.com, browse any of our resources, our events, our videos, our ebooks, and truly send us an email or, DM Fresh Starts Registry on Instagram too. And like I said, it's just my sister and I, so you're safe to send us any messages, and we always respond.
That's wonderful. And you do a lot of good work for, I think most women that are going through a divorce know who you are and have been helped by, in some small or big way, by you and your work.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone. And also, everything that Olivia was talking about, I'm going to put it in the show notes. So you don't have to scribble things down. You can just click on it and make it easy for yourself. Thank you, Olivia, for being here. And thank you to everyone who's listening to the Happily Never After today, especially those of you who are on your own journey in the trenches right now. You're going to get out. You can get out. We hope that you have a great week.